Hello, everyone. Welcome to our DevSync. This time it's update for 2 weeks because we skipped the last Monday. So we'll share what was happening last 2 weeks and what is going to happen next week according to our plans. And Luchain, do you want to start?
Sure. So during last 2 weeks, I basically have finished the feature of checking the execution receipts included in the primary block. Specifically for last week, I spent some time debugging the free key executor test. Unfortunately, no solid progress so far. I took a lot of efforts to try to reproduce locally, but no luck yet. Okay, so I also try to find some clue in the code. In the meanwhile, I have a plausible explanation at present, but I have to confirm it later. Okay. Regarding this week, I believe I am mainly focused on the domains. No concrete plans yet. We'll see after the integration sync. Yeah, that's my updates.
Okay, so there was one test that the one failure that both you and me were able to reproduce. Do you have a good clue on how to fix that?
My current guess is that we wait for the blocks. Actually, there's the writing for the execution receipts, and between the the signal for importing the signal of some blocks has been imported in the test. There's some delay. It's not like atomic in the test, so it's likely the root cause.
Okay, I guess we can discuss on the next call.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions to Luchain? All right, Serge, you're next on my screen.
Okay, so Tauri updater was integrated. Currently we use it as a Cloudflare edge function. Alexei helped me deploy everything, so now we have everything set up, and we sign our updates with Tauri private key. And once the user launches the application, we will check for updates on start. We will have more checks after we clarify behavior. Apart from that, I had some conversations with Arthur regarding our current state and like how can we solve potential blockers at the moment, both for Subspace desktop and other applications we have at the moment. And also I had some discussions with Ozgon. He handed over to me some of his ongoing tasks. Specifically, he has unfinished PR on workflow update, which also has dependency on OpenCL feature. So there is a problem. I tried to run this workflow. It didn't work for me. Well, one reason is this dependency, but I also tried to run it to run commands locally, and it just doesn't build, at least on my machine. And I asked Ivan to help me. I think he can elaborate a little bit more on the issue because it's compilation related. So I wanted to clarify whether I should focus on this one or we can wait until Ozgon is back. I think it's like 1 week, and he can finalize it himself. Yeah, apart from that, I was working on the adding internationalization for the UI of Subspace Desktop. It's an old like that issue. And while I was working on that one, I noticed this strange behavior for the block height we get from a sync state query. And I created a thread. We had a discussion with Nazar, so I created an issue on GitHub, and we can discuss it in details tomorrow. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, any questions, comments? All right, Shamil.
Okay. Last couple of weeks, I worked on the relay networker. I created a prototype for relay client and server with correct settings, and changed Farmer to use the relay network instead of multiple external ports. I reviewed a couple of PRs from Lazar with improvements for relay networking, and the last one was merged 10 minutes ago. This will require to rework Farmer again. Also, I spent time studying Parity's code base for ParityDB and Substrate projects for the next task, persistent networking parameters. This week, I'm going to rework Farmer's integration with DSN and continue with persistent working parameters. That's it.
Okay. Any questions, comments to Shamil? Thank you. Ved, what about you?
Hey everyone. Last a week before last week was mostly focused on speaking for light client and discussions around that. Last week started with the first changes to build the light client. The changes are mostly superficial in moving things around. Fortunately, do not have a PR for that yet. Hopefully soon. And this week, once that is done, want to start with the basic parameters for the light client and go from there.
Okay, any blockers there?
No blockers.
Cool.
Right now, no blockers. I think we'll have more blockers coming in as we want to build a full light client. But again, we can discuss it down the line. Not required right now.
I see a lot of optimism. Okay.
This week, no blockers. Next week, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay, Ivan, what about you?
During the week before the last one, I was working on the adding support for the archiving from the DSN into the farmer. And after that, we decided to add a flag for disabling farming on the farmer side. Those two were merged. There was also we planned on testing the DSN, testing the testing the DSN correctness of that on the farmer side, just having a regular test. So I was working on that. It was merged, even though it still is not very correct, but at least it promises something. Yeah, some guarantees. Last week I was working on the reverse iteration for the ParityDB. It is mostly done. Right now I'm fixing the final comments from the maintainer. Apart from that, I took the issue from the Osman on the OpenCL support on the Subspace desktop. I believe right now that it builds, but there were some minor issues related to like Nazar's comments. I already know how to fix them. And I hope to send some changes today. This week I plan to finalize those two PRs. And move on to help Nazar with the farmer updates. That's it from my side.
Okay, thank you. And I just shared the link with you. I have opened an issue in ParityDB. Looks like there are problems with forward iteration. Doesn't always iterate over the keys that should iterate it. Sometimes doesn't iterate at all. So that will be a fix.
Yeah, we have kind of difficult VSM. I would say like that. Yeah. That's why it took me so long.
Yeah, and no comments anywhere. All right. Any
Thanks.
questions, comments to Ivan? Okay. Daria, you're next.
Yeah, sorry for the wind, but I'm outside. I have finished actually, I think it's third or fourth run over the spec comparing it to the code. So like the first one was just high-level concepts. Then I was comparing the names of the things that they are consistent with the code. And this time, the last couple of weeks, what I was doing, I was just going down the rabbit hole of all the definitions and trying to organize whether it's consistent with the spec or not. And I have identified several things in the protocol meeting. But one thing I wanted to ask you in the dev meeting is that big chunk of development that was going on, the multi-farming with disks and stuff, it technically doesn't change anything in the consensus. It's just for the commodity of speeding up, optimizing, and being more flexible in the plugin side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Daria. Yeah, those changes are just to improve performance. They do not like there are different ways to implement the same thing, I guess. Alexei, what about you?
Last week I helped Sergey with deployment to Cloudflare. Also, I finished work on templating, bash script for manipulating Docker compose and especially command directives. Also, we merged it into infrastructure repo. Also, I was investigating issues with Datadog usage and tried to set up a node, archive node into Volta just to see how it works. And set up Nginx with Cloudflare. It was no issues, but with load balancing at Cloudflare was the issue. It somehow throws error 1016, like it doesn't see any origin, which is strange because simply Cloudflare with Nginx just works. So maybe I will look at this later. And currently we'll be working on migration from DigitalOcean to bare metal provider into United States.
Okay. Questions, comments to Alexei? All right. Justin, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, so just a pretty quick update. 2 weeks before last, we had another intern onboarded, Faye. So got her onboarded and getting her familiar with everything Subspace, and then just some minor improvements and bug fixes on the documentation. Beyond that, a large majority of my focus last week was to preparing for the business offsite, which I'll be attending throughout this week. So we'll be doing some long-term, 6-month out planning for the business side of things.
Okay. On my side, big chunk of time was spent reviewing code. Amazing contributions from the whole team all around. Additionally to that, we've separated the OpenCL builds from the regular builds to make sure that we don't have unnecessary dependencies there. Otherwise, you have to install OpenCL libraries on the server, let's say, where you don't have or don't want to use any OpenCL anyway. So that was feedback based on the latest release from the community. And we've also found a way to optimize the Arch64 builds so we can build production builds and not just debug builds without any debug symbols. And it takes much less time in CI, so it releases some of the CI time we had. And also I had a big series of pull requests regarding multi-disk support, basically, so that we have a new way to run the farmer where you can specify separate disks, usually hard drives that you want to use for plots, and you can specify a separate disk from that for storing the metadata, let's say on SSD, and that way we can take the advantages of the best sides of those storage medias, and also did some optimizations on the farming side to make sure the recommitments work faster, floating works faster, less write amplifications in some cases and stuff like that. So just was trying to look into what we can do in terms of the farming experience for regular users, and also did some cleanups and refactorings for the upcoming features on the networking and farmer side as well. I think that's the brief gist of what I was working on. Arthur, do you have anything to share before we close the recording?
Nope, just ramping up this week.
All right, sounds good. Anything else we'd like to share as a team before we stop? Okay, everyone seems to be quiet. Thanks everyone for watching then, and we'll see you next week, same time and same place.